But welcome to everyone, and especially our presenters, which I'll introduce later. Just before we get going, remember in the previous newsletter, I announced that we are going to purchase our own Zoom license. Now today we do experience some problems, so maybe it's a good thing that we did decide on that. As a result of us having our own Zoom license, we will be able to increase the maximum number of members of this group to 100. Before we said it's only 49, we can now increase it to 100. Now up to this morning, I have received payment from 29 members towards the Zoom license. Thank you very much. But we have a long way to go to reach the 45 paid up members on which the 71 Rand fee was calculated. I will send a confirmation letter to all those from whom I received payment, and also a letter to those that joined the group but have not paid towards the license yet. But please, if you can, assist to recruit more members, because as from October next month, only members who paid their contribution towards the Zoom license will be allowed into the Zoom meeting. Planning ahead, usually I plan 2 months in advance for the speakers and the presenters and the topics. So I'm starting to look at what will happen in with the December meeting. Should we have one, and if we have one, on what date should it be? Now, each one of you will have the opportunity to give your view on that. So at the end of the meeting, I will give you a short survey where you can cast your vote on how we must arrange the December meeting. Okay, today we continue the discussion about the previous or the current industrial revolutions. And Professor Martin Butler, who gave us a presentation about the third industrial revolution at the August meeting, will continue with an explanation of the fourth industrial revolution. Derick van Eeden, you see him there at the screen, will again explain some of the technical terms that originated during the fourth industrial revolution. And then a very current topic is that of cybersecurity. As users of technology, we are all concerned about the implications of events. For instance, the recent data leaks at Experian. I know some of you have had bad experiences by losing credit cards or bank actions on your bank accounts. So Zainab Ruhwanya from University of Cape Town will shed some light, or hopefully not darkness, on the subject of cybersecurity. At the end, I will also present another practical technology tip, something that offers value in your everyday use of your computer. It will be the second in the series that I called I Didn't Know I Can Do That. Professor Butler was introduced to you during our August meeting. Now, Martin was away for the most part of September. He told me that they traveled from Stellenbosch to Causey Bay and then through the Kruger National Park and back home, a total of more than 7,000 kilometers. I don't know how and when he prepared for this presentation, so I'm a bit concerned of what we're going to hear. But over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Johan. Yes, indeed, you should be concerned. I spend, as Johan has said, most part of the month traveling from Cape Point to Causey Bay. First time that I've driven as close as possible to the coast, and it took us 20 days, and it was an absolute amazing experience. We have a beautiful country. Thank you so much. And Johan, while I have you, if you can just give me a thumbs up, you can see my death by PowerPoint at the moment. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a privilege to be with you again. Previously I talked about the third industrial revolution. So a very quick recap. We started off by asking what is that particular device, and figured out that it is significantly more than a mobile phone. I talked about the first, second, and the third industrial revolution. And today is the 30th September that I promised that we will talk about the fourth industrial revolution. So as you can see, Johan, I didn't have time to prepare. I just used the slides from the previous time. And I also said to you that the industrial revolutions and the technological revolutions are not necessarily the same. And I'll explain today where the fourth industrial revolution term actually comes from. But just in reference again, if we look at from a technological perspective, which is my background, we're actually talking about a fifth, or we're actually in the midst of a sixth and a half revolution if we look at the interesting things that's happening in the world of technology. And it's one of the questions that I will leave you at the end. As a young boy growing up in South Africa, I was exposed to Rip van Winkle. And Rip fell asleep, and when he woke up, the world has changed tremendously. And I thought that would be a very good starting point, because if he fell asleep in 1780 and he woke up, you would find out that people have moved from the farms to the cities and are working in factories. People are no longer working exclusively in agriculture, which was 99% of employment in 1780. If you fell asleep in 1740 and you woke up, you would figure that people are not using horse-drawn carts exclusively anymore. Increasingly in certain parts of the world you could get onto a train, and we didn't necessarily just have donkeys and wind turning around mills. We started to use steam power to do that. If you fell asleep in 1890, you would fall asleep in a world that only had 1- and 2-story buildings, and the first skyscrapers in Chicago built in 1884. My favorite building in the world that I'm sharing with you now, the Flatiron Building in New York, was built in 1902. And then that 25 years from 1890 to the turn of the previous century, or the century before that, the world started looking fundamentally different. Skyscrapers were being built all across the world, London, in Sydney, and in many places. If you fell asleep in 1940 and you woke up in 66, you would find that there were cars and goods for everybody. In 1940, a car was an absolute rarity, and we went to a store to buy the foodstuffs that we need to survive. By the mid-1960s, the end of the 1960s, we probably got in a car to go to a store, and we had a choice of consumer goods. We could buy a toaster and an oven and many things. So the world of mass production reduced unit costs significantly, and it meant that we could afford to buy items. All of a sudden, I don't have 2 cups in my house, I have 20 cups, and I have a set of special China porcelain for when the Dominie comes to Cairo as well. So the world has changed tremendously, and if we look at the cusp of the third industrial revolution that we dealt with a month ago, it was then the world of information and telecommunications. So in 1985, the world looked fundamentally different. I matriculated in 1986. In 1986, when I matriculated, we matriculated with logbooks. Now, luckily, because of the audience I have today, you all know what a logbook is, but I promise you that if I mention a logbook to my students at Stellenbosch University now, they have no idea what a logbook is. And to this day, I wish I actually stole a logbook in my matric year, because in 1986, we were the last matriculants to use logbooks to do division and multiplication, because the grade 11s, or standard 9s, the standard 9s, they actually had the calculators, and they in 1987 were the first school-leaving matriculants in South Africa to use calculators. And it meant that the world changed fundamentally. And one of my favorite stories that I love telling is, my daughter was about 11, I think she may have been 12 already, but let's say 11 years of age, and she wanted to have a mobile phone, and she was applying the pressure and saying, but all her friends have mobile phones and everybody have mobile phones. And she thought she threw a trump card when she turned to my wife, and she said to my wife, "Come on, Mom, be fair. At what age did you get a mobile phone?" And my wife smiled and she said, 28. And she looked at her and she said, "What kind of parents did you have?" And it dawned on me that she didn't realize that we grew up without these things. And the question then is if we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution, which is a term that's really just three and a half years old, What would be different if Rip van Winkle would go to sleep today and he would wake up 25 years from now? What would be different? How would the world look different? And I would like to give you a teaser and an appetizer, because my favorite futurist, or more science fiction writer, William Gibson, says the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. And I absolutely love that quote, because what it means by that quote is some of the things that will become common for all of us is already existing somewhere. It's just the absolute exception. And that's true for many things that changed the world. It was the exception for a very small amount of people, and then 20 or 30 or 40 years later, we all had mobile phones or computers or laptops or whatever the case may be. So if we look at what the fourth industrial revolution is, the gentleman that you see on the top right, Charles Schwab, he coined the term. He was the first person to use the term the fourth industrial revolution. He is the founder of the World Economic Forum and currently also the executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. And the picture in a slightly altered format that I have on the screen now is what he actually used less than 4 years ago when the term was first used in Davos, where he then popularized the term the fourth industrial revolution. And he said it's all about cyber physical systems. And it's not like many things that has gone before it, something that is easily understood unless it is widely used, because what exactly is a cyber physical system? A mobile phone today, we use the term mobile phone and everybody knows what a mobile phone is because we own them, we've seen them, and we've used them. If you needed to explain the concept of a mobile phone to a person 30 years ago, it would take you a while to explain that particular person. So, and that's what I would like to do in the remaining 10 minutes, just to explain to you and providing hopefully some practical examples or what do we mean by cyber physical systems. Now, I just want to put a slight caveat here. Charles also wrote a book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, which was hugely popular, surprise, surprise. And there are some people that are questioning, is this really an industrial revolution? But mostly it is accepted that we are in the midst of a transformation that is fundamentally different to how the world has looked before, and it will probably look a little bit different afterwards. I would like to, and this is the busiest slide of the day. If you survive this slide, you will survive my 20 minutes. For me, this is fundamental to understanding the fourth industrial revolution, because there's a difference between digitizing something and digitalizing it. And I know it sounds like semantics, and unfortunately the two words are very closely related. But I would like to explain that by digitizing something, we actually create a digital instance of that. For example, we have film cameras and then we have digital cameras. So we are still taking a picture, we still have the picture, but it's a digital format. The two examples I have on the screen, Encyclopedia Britannica, which don't exist today anymore because of the fourth industrial revolution to an extent, but really the third and a half. Was put on a CD and then a DVD. So Microsoft stole the encyclopedia market from the Encyclopedia Britannica. I remember having dinner with my family in the Hussar Grill a couple of years ago, and my daughter looked at the Encyclopedia Britannica and she asked her mother, "What is that?" And the mother replied, "That was Mommy's Google," because that was our Google. I grew up in a house where we had die kennis, and as dit nie in die kennis was nie, then you couldn't use it because the kennis was all the kennis in the home, and between an insertsel in an Afrikaans newspaper and the kennis encyclopedia and infrequent trips to the library, that was the entire cusp, the entire realm of information that I had at my disposal. Then Microsoft came and they put that on a CD, and we can put it in our laptops, and all of a sudden information was to an extent democratized. We all understand LPs, and then we created CDs which had particular benefits. But the moment that you digitalize something, you actually change how we deal with that, because ultimately in Carta is just a digital format of the encyclopedia, and the CD is just a digital format of a LP player. But if we look at two of the very widely used online services, and we look at something like Wikipedia, Wikipedia is fundamentally different. I ask my students to go and do entries on Wikipedia, because they always ask me is Wikipedia good enough to use? And I say, you're asking the wrong question. The question is not, is it good enough to use? The question is, have you contributed to Wikipedia? Do you have something that you would like to do? I remember one evening sitting and grading my students' assignments, and the children asked me, so what do you do? I said, I'm grading assignments. And they said, how does it work? And I explained to them Wikipedia, and they went behind my back and they put an entry for tamaleki. And whenever my wife was not at home, I would melt sugar and put butter in and make tamaleki. So they put an entry on tamaleki on Wikipedia to explain what it is. They gave the recipe, and they also put a line in there to say frequently made by fathers when mothers are not at home. Now, that kind of answers the question. It's real-time, interesting information, but not necessarily always that accurate, although there is a very interesting self-regulating mechanism in there. And if we then look at iTunes, fundamentally different from how we've consumed music for more than 100 years. I can buy one song, I can buy it immediately. Everything costs exactly the same. So the business model around music consumption and how we consume that changed completely. And where digitizing in the third industrial revolution was all about the technology and creating digital instances of existing products. Digitalization is how do we actually blur the boundaries between the physical and the digital to create completely new business models. And I actually like this picture a lot more than the original one from Charles Schwab, because it went from steam to electricity, and the computing was really the third industrial revolution, but the fourth industrial revolution is all about being connected. Because if you look at the model of Wikipedia and the iTunes, if you are not connected, you cannot have that particular business environment. And the fourth industrial revolution is then all about being connected. Now, if I can try to explain it like this, if there's a youngster with you in the room, they've never seen a map book in their lives, just quickly explain to them exactly what the map book is, because it's not something that they've seen. But we've all seen that, and we all know about map books. Then we got GPSs, and the GPS had the same information as the map book, but it had it in an easier to consume format because it was a digitized version from that. And then we went to real-time traffic routing. And the real-time traffic routing said, it is still the map in the map book, it's still the guiding from the GPS, but now we gather the traffic. And now we're starting to blur the boundaries between the physical and the digital, because when I'm asking for directions, I'm also giving my own information, which Google then uses to say how the traffic is moving at that particular instance, and they are blurring these boundaries between the physical and the digital. But that really is still kind of 3.5 industrial revolutions, because the real fourth industrial revolution is where you actually say, I just want to get there. Because I don't want a map book, I actually don't want a GPS, and I actually don't want automated traffic information. I want to get from my home to work, or I want to get from my home to wherever the best pinotage are being served at this particular point in time. And the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution, where we're heading to, is to say is how do we get there? And that getting there could be a self-driving car, could be a flying jetpack, it could be, as we are increasingly seeing on the top right, autonomous drones, or sadly, in the bottom right, it could be a virtual presence robot, which we are seeing increasingly here. He is attending a birthday party from the family remotely as a robot. But the essence is we are blurring the boundaries between the physical and the digital. And the question then is, so what are the main drivers? Why is this taking place at these unprecedented rates? And we all know the fable of the person that either slayed the dragon or did something wonderful, and then the king wanted to reward him and gave him half of his kingdom in the hand of the princess. And he said, no, I really like rice. I want 1 grain of rice on the first block in the chessboard, 2 on the second, 4 on the third, and just keep on doubling the rice. And if you look at that particular fable, in the end, the amount of rice at the end of the first half of the chessboard is just 2,000 million. So it's just 2,000 million grains of rice. It's a lot, but we can get our heads around that. If you go for the entire chessboard, in the end, the amount of rice on the 64 square is more than 1,000 times the annual rice production of the world. I don't know if you've been to China. There are more than 2 or 3 people in that country, and they love their rice. But that's the amount of rice that you will have on that last square. And if you stack it upright, it would be 3 times taller than what Mount Everest is. And that's what we then call exponential growth. And exponential growth is what is happening to bandwidth, storage, and processing power. So if we look at the processing power, that which needed to take an entire room, than that we saw in the old movies, today that processing power is sitting in our mobile phones. And if we give a microprocessor of 1950 the power of 1, then by 2080 we would have the power of 600 million. And it just means that the ability to compute is increasing exponentially. If we're looking at data storage, exact same concept in here. You find that in 2005 on an SD card we could store 126 megabytes. Just 9 years later we could store 126 gigabytes, and today we can actually store 1 terabyte already. So the ability to store information has also increased exponentially. And then finally, and important for the cyber physical systems, is communication speeds. It was completely unthinkable until we had the Soccer World Cup in South Africa to do what we are doing now. South Africa simply didn't have the infrastructure to be able to have two-way video communication. But all of a sudden, the Soccer World Cup meant a lot of extra bandwidth to our country. There was a lot of bandwidth employed. And today we're all looking at each other and we're having a video conference, which was unfathomable. And whether we do that from Stellenbosch to Helderberg or right around the world, we have the same quality of service experience because of the growth in telecommunications. Now, this exponential growth, the driver then, has led to this world which is completely different from what we have perceived in the past. And we even have terms which we now talk about, Moore's law and the laws of mass digital structure, Metcalfe's law and Butler's law of photonics. So we even have terminology that describe how these things are changing all around us. And you'll see the one at the bottom, the cost of transmitting data on optical networks decreases by half about every 9 months. So it's kind of, we don't have to change the lanes in the highway. We just make the cars more compact, or we stack the cars on top of each other, or we pack the cars in closer together. So the highway, the optic fiber stays the same, but we can do a lot more traffic on that because of exponential increases in technology, and that then allows us to do something different. And to wrap up, the question is then, so what are we doing different? What are the things that is different? What do we actually then mean by these cyber physical systems that's busy changing our world? On the business side, I want to invite you to read one book. It is the best book on the fourth industrial revolution and the business implications of that I've read in the last 3 years. The author is Salim Ismail, and the title of the book is Exponential Organizations. And what Salim is arguing, which is really interesting, and this is really on half an hour all on its own, is when anything is growing exponentially, in the near term, it is less than what we have expected it to be, but in the longer term, it's more profound than what we have expected it to be. So if you look at anything like autonomous vehicles or flying cars or automated grid that evenly distributes all energy through all the homes and the generation capacity in South Africa, all of these things, in the near term, there is always disappointment because the progress is not at the rate that is expected. But when you look in the long term, you find that there's disruption that is setting in because it changes the world more fundamentally than what we thought. Johan, I see you've unmuted. Is my time up? Not? Okay. So I'm going to wrap up in a minute or two. So the example that I love to share with my students is play as you plant insurance. So you're more than welcome to Google Kilimu Salama. And it's an example of where the business model for insurance is being turned completely on its head, where there's an automatic monitoring of the weather. And if there's drought or a flood because of the automatic monitoring of the weather, the insurance payment is made automatically. So you've literally blurred it, and it pays out on the mobile phones as well. But I've brought for you a couple of examples apologies, a couple of examples of the cyber physical world. You can see on the top left, it's in Amazon's robot factory, where the robots is moving the goods around that we order. Here is food being delivered automatically on the top right. We are building houses automatically because a lot of the knowledge of bricklayers are being embedded into machines. The video on the bottom right, I took myself. That is a virtual person. I'm in Stockholm. The person over there is on the stage with us, and this one over here is a gentleman that's in Canada, and he's speaking to us from Canada, but he appears live in front of the stage. So for us, it looks like he is physically present within the building. It reshapes the value proposition in the business world. Discovery has got these bands that drives our behavior, that rewards us to do certain things. There's a museum. If you ask a child to go to a museum, they will tell you it's boring. But if you go to the museum in Chicago, they love going there because they can do multiple things in there. It has made money mobile, that we understand. Amazon has got shop and walk. You walk in, you pick up your things, and you just walk out. There's no points of presence. There's nothing to do because you just authenticate yourself with your mobile phone. If you walk in and you just pick up everything and you just walk out with that. And it's reshaping agriculture. There are so many brilliant examples of things being completely automated, from a small little vegetable garden in the bottom left to drones spraying, and in nurseries as well. And all of these are just visual examples of where we use the technology to automate certain things. The essence of this is that which resided within information science, knowing things, and that which resided within electric and process mechanical, doing things, are merging. And this is where I would like to conclude, because I've said a lot of things and I know I talk very fast. But if you ask me to simplify, what does the fourth industrial revolution mean? For a large time, knowing things meant that I studied electronic engineering, so it was all about televisions and radios and mobile phones and computers and all of these things. It remained static, but it knew a lot of things and it processed a lot of things. Many of my colleagues that did mechanical engineering and all of these things, they build tumble dryers and washing machines and trains and planes and automobiles. So they perform work, they do things. And as these two worlds collided and our washing machines became more intelligent, and all of the physical machines that's doing things became computerized panels, the car became automatic fuel injection, all of these things. We're moving closer to where the knowing things, all of these things, and the doing things, all of these things, are actually combining. And the easiest in our head is to think about something like a robot, because a robot can physically perform labor. It can do something. It can pick it up. It can do your washing. It can iron your clothes. It can vacuum something. It can do something. But in order to perform the physical duty, it doesn't need a human overlord or a human master to steer it around. The information processing ability allows it a level of autonomy and a level of decision making. So the combination of knowing and doing merged together is then the cyber physical systems that typically defines what we know today as the fourth industrial revolution. Thank you. Always ambitious in terms of what I pack in. Johan, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Martin. It's fascinating. And I said, I don't know if you saw anything else in the Kruger Park because you were so busy with this presentation. You packed a lot into it. Thank you. Okay, any questions for Martin before we move on? Any questions? You can show your hand. Bernard Pryor, just unmute yourself.
I think, is it unmuted? Yeah. A lot of us are getting optic fiber being installed into our own homes. one always worries, is there a limit to the capacity of optic fiber that we could experience in the future with the developments of the fourth industrial revolution for communication between different terminals?
Yeah, excellent question, Bernard. It's very interesting. So there's two dimensions to the answer. The first dimension is the technology that we use to communicate over the optic fiber keeps on improving. So you actually don't need a new optic fiber to have a higher speed on your fiber. So they don't physically have to dig up anything to increase your capacity in future. The capacity is mostly throttled at your service provider. But even then, the technology in 2, 3, 4 years' time will allow us to, at a higher frequency, package more information on it. So that's the good news. The second part of the good news is that the world capacity and appetite for bandwidth has grown exponentially due to video. But unless you're going to stream and watch 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 video sessions simultaneously, it's actually tapering off at the moment. So whatever, for once in the world of technology, whatever we install from an optic fiber perspective today may probably last us for decades. There's no continued exponential growth beyond ridiculous high definition television being beamed in.
Thanks, Bernard. I think I'll take a final question, and that's from Di, who posted it in the chat panel. She's asking, why is there so much concern about 5G?
I think a lack of information. I may do that in future. What I like to do, Di, is to take a hypothetical scenario when we started with the internal combustion engine and say there wasn't a group of scientists that gathered and said, we have this wonderful new thing, the internal combustion engine, but what will it do to the climate, and what will it do to carbon in the air, and what will it do, and. We didn't have that hypothetical situation because we didn't have the ability to measure the carbon in air. We didn't understand climate change and. So unfortunately, a lot of the implications of new technology is with hindsight 20, 30, 55 years down the line when we now see what the technology did to us. I think the answer to your question is 50% is absolute nonsense and hype being driven by people that have no idea of what we are talking about. And the other 50% is real because we don't necessarily understand the full extent of what it may do to us in future.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks once again for your talk. And there's other good questions here. In the meantime, I also just want to welcome Zainab, who joined us. She's the next presenter after Derick, and I'll introduce her later. But those of you who attended our August meeting will remember Derick. He had the unenviable task of explaining some of the terminology within a very restricted time. And today, Derick continues with terminology that originated more or less during the fourth industrial revolution, as Martin explained to us now. I'm confident that Derick's thorough understanding of this technology and his intense preparation will overcome the challenge. So over to you, Derick.
Thanks, Johan. You're really setting the bar high with the preparation comments for both myself and Martin. But let's see if we can live up to it. So I want to take a step further back into time to the latter part of the third industrial revolution. And this did not happen at Davos, but it is believed that it was around 5,111 days ago that the CEO of Google first walked onto a stage and used the term cloud computing in a formal presentation. So why cloud computing, and why am I talking about this? The advent of cloud computing has provided the world with several enabling levers to pull when assembling or consuming technology infrastructure services. This is typically by using software configurable systems, which are paid for by the end user on a consumption-based model, and it is therefore also very, very flexible. These systems can scale up or scale down to any size and at a moment's notice. They are highly available. The redundancy levels are really high, so a single component can go down and it won't affect the availability of the functionality that the consumers are typically consuming. They are very, very flexible. You can add or remove resources, you can change configuration, you can add functionality, and most of it in a soft configurable way without people physically doing some things or pulling wires or connecting things to each other. The connectivity is something that Martin spoke about earlier on in terms of an enabling technology for the fourth industrial revolution. And connectivity was something that the cloud computing environment brought about and made very, very easy. So people could connect to each other without, once again, pulling new wires, connecting new plugs. It was all soft configurable, making that very pliable. The interconnection of that also provided us with an end user community that could be increasingly mobile. So one would not have to go to a room and sit down at a computer to consume a lot of the services that was provided by cloud computing, but you could be mobile and walk around and actually use your mobile phone, your tablet, whichever device suited you, to access all of the functionality provided from within these cloud computing environments. So I'm not academic and I have to use Google, but I'm glad to hear that Martin also uses it from time to time. If I ask Google to give me a definition about the fourth industrial revolution, I get something such as this. It says that it's characterized by a fusion of physical, digital, and biological worlds. These come together to provide us enhanced functionality. And there are several participating technologies which allow and enable this. So some of them is natural language processing, the Internet of Things, big data, machine learning, additive manufacturing, and augmented reality. And there may be others, but these are the ones that I chose to quickly talk about and just explain some of the terminology around those to you. Today, AI is one of the most talked about transformative technologies and one that will certainly lead the way within the fourth industrial revolution. The simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, and especially computer systems, which include learning, reasoning, and applying self-correction without or with very little human intervention. The predictive power of AI has already come to define many of the digitally enabled products and services as we use them today. So AI attempts to mimic biological intelligence to allow the software application or system to act with varying degrees of autonomy and thereby reducing manual human intervention for a wide range of functions. So let's look at some of these terms. The first one I had there earlier was natural language processing. Natural language processing enables conversational interaction between humans and computers. It's an AI technology referring to the processing of human language by a computer program by either listening or understanding and or responding via voice. A very old and basic example of natural language processing could probably be something such as email spam detection. In that case, it wasn't listening, but it was reading and interpreting text and trying to identify things such as spam. Current approaches of natural language processing are based on machine learning with tasks which include text translation, sentiment analysis, speech recognition, amongst other things. Examples of natural language processing is something such as a virtual call center agent, where you are speaking to a person on the other side who is actually not a person, that is listening and interpreting your questions and actually replying in voice with defined responses. Another example is the virtual assistants that you all have on your phones, such as Apple Siri or Amazon Alexa, or even Google has got an option around that today. So it's a computer system listening, understanding, and responding to you in a verbal way. Another term that you would have seen and heard is Internet of Things. Internet of Things is a network of intelligent computers, devices, and or sensors that collect and communicate huge amounts of data. Typically, the collected data is sent to a central cloud-based service where it is aggregated with other data, and it is then processed to derive value and or make decisions, and then share that back to the end users or other systems in a helpful way. Internet of Things, if you think about an example, typically something such as a smart home, which is a house with many sensors and or cameras in there which can interact with each other and trigger events by one event happening on one side of their house and that triggering something on the other side. A thermostat could automatically set the temperature, or curtains could automatically be drawn because you switched on the TV. A whole lot of activities which can be enabled by this Internet of Things and all of the sensors that are associated with it. One of the other terms that you'll hear is a term called big data. What is big data? What is different between that and just normal data? Big data are data sets that are so voluminous and complex that traditional data processing software or humans would be inadequate or unable to deal with them. Lately, the term tends to refer to the use of predictive analysis and also user behavior analytics or other advanced data analytics methods that aim to extract value from very large data sets, which are analyzed for patterns and trends and are then used as input into other processes. One of these processes is machine learning. What is machine learning? It is a current application of AI, which is based around the idea that we should really just be able to give a machine access to the data and then let them learn for themselves and act without programming or human intervention. Machine learning serves a purpose to address problems by understanding past trends and predicting future patterns through the combination of statistics, mathematics, and a base level of computer programming just to start this all off and enable it. Examples of this are, a simple example would be some of these instant identification apps that you can download nowadays onto your phone, where you can let the phone listen to a song and it will identify the artist, the name of the track. You can give it some information about birds, or it will listen to a bird singing and it will identify the bird. And also you can take a photograph of a plant or a tree, and the app will take that, upload it to the cloud, analyze that, and come back and actually tell you what the botanical name is of that plant that you had just photographed. Further example is something such as autonomous or self-driving vehicles. There's a lot of machine learning that is also going into the management of that. Additive manufacturing, what is that? Many of you will have heard the term 3D printing. It describes a production technique where it is clearly distinguished from old conventional methods of which were based on material removal. So instead of milling a workpiece from a solid block of metal or wood, what 3D printing would do, it is a process by which a digital 3D design is used, and that is then build up a component by depositing the material in layers. Martin showed you a quick example there of 3D printing where you saw a huge machine running around and building walls, depositing concrete. These materials that 3D printers use can vary from plastics to metals to composite materials. There are several options. They could be very small. It could be something such as a part that you would just like to print for a drone, and you can do that at home then, you don't have to buy it. Or a friend of mine walked into my office some time ago with an iPad, did a 360 around me, walked out of the office and came back a little later on in the day with something such as this, which was a device that he used to actually use the camera to scan an image of me, and he then went away and put that into his 3D printer, and from some sort of plastic printed a unit such as that. But there are many practical examples, and in the future we will see much more of that. Lastly, augmented reality. Martin showed you somebody on the stage early in one of his video clips there who actually wasn't on the stage but was at a remote location. So what is augmented reality? It's a technology that interprets human interaction and then superimposes that on a computer-generated view of the real world. And thus providing a composite view. It combines these things. So examples are software that architects use future designs, where they would superimpose a future design onto an existing video or an existing image, and would allow the client to actually walk through or experience that new house or the new structure that they are building. Estate agents are using these, where they generate virtual walkthroughs through houses. They would walk through the house with technology, photograph all the rooms, all of that would be stitched together, and you would be able to sit in your house and actually take a virtual tour through a house that you are interested in without actually visiting the house. Or you might be shopping for furniture, and there's a new couch that you would like to see what that couch would look like once it's installed into your home amongst your furniture. And typically you have apps where you could pick the furniture piece, and you could direct your camera at your lounge and superimpose that, move it around and put it in the spot where you'd like to have it, and physically experience what that piece would look like in your house. Also, it's useful in collaborative design, where designers could be in different remote locations, and they could share and see or work together on designs, typical things such as parts for a new car, or any sorts of technology. So it's a virtual image of whatever they're working on, and the fact that the people are remote does not bother them. Person A could see person B physically adding something or changing it or moving it, all within this augmented reality world. So those are a couple of terms around some of the technologies that support the fourth industrial revolution, and a lot of things happening around there. There are others as well, but time, I think I will stop there, and if there are any questions, you're welcome to ask them.
Thank you, Derick. Yeah, I think all of us learned at least something from Derick's explanations here. Again, for me, very fascinating. Are there any questions? Anyone with a question? Just show your hand or put it in the chat panel. Peter, just unmute yourself.
Thank you, Derick. What I'd like to know is the education system in our country keeping up so that we can maintain all this marvelous equipment that you've been talking about? Maybe it can fix itself, but I'm sure there must be many things that do need repairs at times. Can we actually do it?
Yes, so I mean, the curriculum is continuously being changed, and I know a lot of schools nowadays has information technology as a subject, which I think is a start. I don't think at school level you will learn enough it'll enable you as a user of these technologies, but most probably won't enable you as a contributor or a creator of some of the back-end components that are used to plug together the functionality that the users get to in the end, or get to use in the end. The second part of your question, if you can just repeat that again, I think it was about fixing things that are broken.
Correct.
I'm not quite sure what you are. Can you give me an example of something that you were thinking of?
Well, if for example I've got a problem with my TV at the moment, I can get somebody who's a technician who can repair it.
Yes.
But once you get into these more advanced technological areas, is there somebody who can fix things if they go wrong?
Yeah, so typically what you would find today is you would go onto a support website of that vendor who manufactured that TV, and they would today already have something on there, typically such as a chatbot, where you can type your problem into a little text edit box, and it will interpret that, and through machine learning and the AI components at the back end, come back with one or two suggestions in terms of what your problem might be to get confirmation of that, and either suggest 2 or 3 remedial actions. If that process can't assist you, then it would pass you on to a human to actually, have a further discussion with you. But they're trying to offload a lot of that work from the humans and getting the system. A lot of the banks are implementing things such as that, where you can phone in and you can ask, but what is the interest rate on a credit card? And the system will actually respond to you in voice. And similarly, when things are broken, they try and use these things in a support fashion as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. A question from Linda. Derick, how does the cloud infringe on our data privacy?
Yes, so data privacy, I think, is a complicated topic, and also possibly an emotional topic for some people. And we probably need more time than what we have here in this question and answer session. But I think the basic thing is that normally without any rogue actions, such as hackers doing things, your data would not be exposed if you did not give somebody the approval or the authority to actually utilize that. And we often do that without thinking. You want to be able to speak to Siri or Amazon Alexa, and to be able to do that, you have to give that system the ability to listen to you and to listen to everything that is being said in your house all day long. So it's your choice whether you want it to be able to listen to you. The benefit of being able to just verbally instruct it to do things for you might exceed that of what you think might be a threat in terms of your privacy. But mostly people can't get you stuff if somehow you did not give them access to that. Unfortunately, sometimes people don't understand what they are giving access to, and that becomes a bit of a problem.
Derick, I did expect that many of the questions that comes out of these explanations will refer to future topics, and data privacy and cookies, and that is exactly one of those, which at the end of the meeting I'll tell you exactly what, but that is actually our next meeting's topic. So as Derick said, I mean, we can have a long discussion on data privacy, but that is the future, or the next meeting's topic. Now the last speaker is Zainab Ruhwanya, and she can now correct me if I pronounce it incorrectly. But Zainab sent me a very brief bio or CV, usually a sign of a very humble person. I did send it out to you before the meeting, and all I can add at this stage is that Zainab was born and bred in Tanzania, but she currently lives in Cape Town with her husband and 9-year-old son. And as you've seen in this CV, she's a lecturer at the University of Cape Town, specializing in cybersecurity. So I'm sure many of you have waited just for this. So Zainab, over to you. Now you'll have to turn on your camera and your microphone.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Okay, so my name is Zainab, and Johan, you pronounced my name very well. That's Zainab Ruhwanya, and I'm from Tanzania. I'm a mom of two, actually. I have a son and a daughter. My daughter is 7 years old, and my son is 9. Yeah, am I able to share my screen? Have the privilege to do that? Okay, so yeah, I have the privilege. I can do that. Yeah. Okay, so email and asked me if I could present about cybersecurity. The question that he asked me, he said, you would like to know what is phishing, hacking, virus, SIM swapping, ransomware, spyware, and botnet, and what are the dangers for these threats, and how can you defend yourself? This is a very, very large topic, so I tried to break it down into two main topics. I broke it down into malwares, things that are come in a technical way, and social engineering that include phishing, phishing pretexts, etc. So if my time allows me, I brought in some videos for you to see how some of these attacks are achieved. So to start with, we'll start with malware. Malware means malicious softwares. And these software are created from the very simple ones such as adware, which adware are like advertisement that comes to you, to the most critical ones like ransomware or taking over your computers as a botnet. So, so what is, who actually does that? So that's the other question that I was asked. People that sit down and think about and create malwares are called hackers. And this is someone who uses their computer coding knowledges to bypass the security of your device or the network. And actually, hacking might not always be for malicious purpose. Some hacking for a good cause. Maybe someone is trying to be helpful, finding the vulnerability in your system, and so that you could fix it. But nowadays, most references to hacking and hackers, it characterizes them as unlawful activity or by cyber criminals. But we know that there are hackers that are researchers and there are hackers that work for organizations. So there are different types of hackers, and the hackers are determined by their motivation and if they are breaking the law or not. So we have black hackers, black hat hackers, and white hat hackers, and gray hat hackers. So the black hat hackers, these are usually motivated by financial gains, and their main intent is to steal from you, either to cause reputation damage in your organization or create corporate espionage. And some other black hat hackers are from nations to nations. If you've heard, there are hackers from Russia, there are hackers from like Korea, all these cases that you've heard maybe when Sony was attacked, or even in the recent activity that has happened here in South Africa, Syrian was hacked, and they gave away information, our information. Actually, I don't know if mine is there or yours there, but it's our information to some malicious person. That hacking activities is connected to people in Russia. So you can see that there are some national state hacking systems that are there. And then there are white hat hackers. These are very hateful hackers, and they usually work for a certain organization, and their job is to seek vulnerability and threats and fix them before the black hat hacker has actually found it and try to get into your system. And then we have gray hat hackers. The gray hat hackers, they're actually not so much malicious like black hat hackers, but they also break into the system. When they break into your system, they break into your system without your permission, but they will report that to you so that they can collect either a reward or you can pay them. So all these hackers, what they do is create, they could create some kind of adware to exploit your application. In this malware that can be created, such as virus, worms, Trojan horse, ransomware, botnet, adwares, etc. So, and how are these? What are these, and how are these created, and how is the difference? How is the difference between these malwares? So we have virus. This is most common, and people talk so much about it. These are kind of executable programs that you need to click on, and they usually attach themselves to a program, a file, or a disk. And the program that they might attach on there, such as Microsoft Word document that you might open from an email, or a PDF document, or even just a disk that you, maybe a flash drive that you insert in your computer. And then when you click on this program, they actually execute themselves and attach themselves in some of your file. They can delete them, and what they do, they usually replicate themselves and send copies from one computer to another across your network. So if I have local area network in my house, and I have several computers that are connected in my network, if one of the device is attached to a worm, so this worm can propagate from one device to the next, and they actually replicate themselves so much in your device. And what they do, they can add more malware, such as adware or viruses, or they can open up your your device to become a botnet. We'll see that later. And then there are different types of malware that are called Trojan horses. As you know, Trojan horse is something that it covers itself as something that is like legitimate, and you can install it and think that this is an application that does something good for me. Unfortunately, it could be a fake application that installs more malware or does something to your devices or to you, because mostly the malware's intention is either to make your application or your devices into a host of some kind where it can send more malware somewhere, or it can take spy on information out of your devices. So there are different kinds of Trojan horses. So there's a Trojan horse that its job comes to your computer and to spy on you. Everything that you do, it collects that information and send it to the hacker. There's a Trojan horse that its job is to take on the key that you press in. So whatever key that's they're called key logs, Trojan horses. So as you click on it, whatever key you write, if it's an email that you're writing, whatever key you press in, it's sent to the hacker. And then other type of Trojan horses that they masquerade themselves as a banking application where they pretend to be your bank, and then you can log in and provide your information, and then in the middle they take that your username and password. And for people that are using Android, there are so many, over 10,000 applications in the Play Store that have been discovered to be Trojan horses. So before you download anything from a Play Store, please make sure that that application that you are about to download and work with, it's very important and you need it. And it's coming from a reputable source that you know that this is actually what it's supposed to be doing. So another type of malware that's very common and has happened to so many organizations and people, these are called ransomware. So these are malicious software. Actually, they infect your computer, and what they do, they display messages demanding a fee to be paid in order for your system to work again. So what ransomware does, they can lock either your important files that you need for doing something, for working, or they can actually close down your whole computer. So before you log in, you find that your computer has they have like a lock screen. They say for you to be able to open your device, you need to pay a certain amount of money. So I don't know, I think we'll jump this, and then I'll share this slide with Johan, then he can share with you. You can watch this at your own time, but there's some few videos that I'd like for you to watch them right now. So there's another type of malware which is called botnet. And botnet, this is a collection of compromised Internet of Things. Internet of Things, you might have heard from previous presenters, these are computers, phone, camera, smart appliances, and they can be also infected by malware. And what happens to this is that they create some kind of zombie armies. And these are armies, they are devices that are under control of a certain third party, and that uses it for like sending spam and viruses, or to flood a network with messages, or even doing denial of service attacks to other applications. So the denial of service attacks is such as so many devices send requests, let's say, to a web page, and that web page become flooded to the point that it cannot take any more requests and it crashes. So that's what is called, and in simple term, denial of service attacks. And these are usually used between corporates, when one is trying to do corporate espionage or nation-to-nation attack. So how can you know that you are infected? First of all, if you own a phone, you might find that maybe your phone was working really well yesterday, and now it started to slow down. And then the storage space is becoming low, or your device starts crashing or freezing, or you see that you have pop-up messages that are coming up, or your programs opening and closing automatically without you prompting anything. Or maybe your device is locked without you locking it and it's requesting for something. This is a ransomware attack. Or your battery life decreases abruptly. You see that your phone doesn't work the same way. You had 90% of battery charge, and all of a sudden the battery charge is going down to 20%, etc. Or if you are in a computer and using a browser, you can find that your browser changes without your input, or your antivirus become disabled all of a sudden, or you can get someone telling you that you sent them a spam. So then you know that you probably have a malware in your device. And some malware or some viruses, what they do, as I say, they attach themselves in some application, and some of them are able to send email by themselves, or even do something even worse. So how can you protect yourself from a malware? First of all, you install and maintain antivirus and anti-spyware software. And one thing is that you have to be sure to keep your antivirus software updated, because malwares and hackers are working night and day, creating new malware, new attacks to people. So, and also those that are working in technology sense of creating antivirus and anti-spyware, they see the error and they fix it quickly. So you have to make sure that you update your software all the time. And then there are many free and commercial options of antivirus and anti-spyware out there. You can use them. And even for those that are using phones, your phone can install some antivirus and anti-spyware. And I would recommend for you to do the one that you pay for, not the free one when you're using them in your phone. Also, do not open email attachment unless you're expecting the email with the attachment and you trust the sender. That's very important. You will see that in the next section when you talk about social engineering attacks. Also, do not click links from unknown sources. Do not download files and application from untrustworthy sources, and you need to know that you can trust the source before you download any application or a file. And you have to make sure that your software that you're using, if it's in a phone, if an Android phone, or it's an iPhone, or it's a Windows or iOS, make sure that it's in the latest version. And easy way for you to do that, ask somebody who knows how to go around your device and to enable for you the automatically update. And also to avoid the ransomware attack, this is very important to back up your data regularly. I think in the backup of data for people that are using devices like mobile phone and such as Apple or Android, you can use the cloud version of the service that you're getting. That is very easy, and the most important part of that cloud service is for you to maintain your password and making sure that you do not share with somebody else. Or you can save whatever you have or the data that you have on your device in an external drive. So the next thing that we talk about, it's a social engineering attack. This is related to all the phishing, vishing, and SMSing. There's a lot of that as we go. But before we go further, I would like to see if somebody has any question on that part first.
Zainab, I'm sure there are many questions, but let's wait with the questions until you are done. Then I'll give them a chance to pose their questions.
Okay, so we'll see social engineering attack. So social engineering attack, it's any act that influences a person to take an action that that may or may not be on their best interest. And social engineering attack does not only apply in security, it's there in your family. Somebody can convince you to do something you do not want. It's somebody who is selling something for you, advertising something to you, and you're not sure you want it, but they can convince you to buy the thing. In terms of security, so social engineering attack, cyber criminal would manipulate you into performing an action or divulging your confidential information. So it's like they trick you with a simple fraud, and they use deception to gain information or commit fraud or access to your system that you're having. And what the social people that are very good at social engineering do is like they attempt to use information that they know about you and your relationship with others to build your trust. And with information that they know about you, you'd wonder how would somebody who doesn't know me might be able to get this information about me. Is it somebody that I'm related to? It might not even be somebody you're related to. It might be some information that you shared out there in the social media. Because in the social media now we share so much. I'll share about my life probably, and I'll talk so much maybe about my kids. I talk about my dogs. I talk about my husband and maybe my mother's maiden name. I'll talk about so many things. So if somebody wants to attack me through social engineering attacks, they will just go to my social media page and see everything, all the things that I like, what kind of flowers that I like, what's my pet's name, and when did I finish school. All those information, they can gather those information and then they can use it against me. So, and then what attackers do, they often take advantage of our emotional responses, especially generated by current events, or maybe we have money concern, or there's a certain time of the year. So for example, they would use natural disaster. For example, the Naisna fire, they would send you an email asking you to donate to that, something that has happened a few years ago. Maybe they want to ask you, to tell you something about their benefits, such as retirement information. Or maybe they use the current event like the pandemic and healthcare. So they can send you information about the COVID-19 pandemic. There are economic concerns, and there's the most common one that everybody knows, the 419 scams from Nigerians. They say that you have won something. Actually, in a normal sense, you can't win something you haven't played. Or they do anything that can trigger your emotional response. So what are the type of social engineering? We have phishing attack. This is the most common one. This is an attempt to obtain sensitive information, such as username, password, and credit card detail by covering themselves as some kind of trustworthy entity in an electronic communication. So phishing is typically carried out by email, and it often directs users to enter personal information at a fake website with the look and feel of which are identical to the legitimate one, like a bank website. And again, they entice you to click on malicious link and provide more information. And in the end result of phishing is that when you click on the link, they would install something in your device, and that could be a spyware. They could be your device can turn into a botnet. They can install even viruses, worms, etc. And these are some examples of phishing email. This is the most recent phishing email during this time of the pandemic. So someone sending you an email as a doctor with the coronavirus advisory information, and they say you have to download a page. Once you download the page, once you open the page and they say you need a new version of, or maybe your device is using a new version and you need to enable a macro. As you click and enable a macro, there your computer gets infected, whether with the malware. So whichever type that the hacker might have sent you. This is the phishing email that I received on 30th of July, and they said that my Apple ID was locked. And unfortunately, because I quickly looked at it, and it was sent to an email address that I don't use. It's not even connected to my Apple ID. So that's one thing. So you have to really be vigilant and know and be careful before you click on any link. So when you hover over a link, but by not clicking, it might be able to show a different address other than the one that you're used to, your bank or your any financial institution, because that's really important. In my Apple ID, because I pay for everything in Apple, my credit card are there, and there are so many of my details. So I consider Apple, my Apple ID containing my financial information. So for me, that's very sensitive. And also you can check the to section here. You open the from and the to make sure that is it direct to me, because sometimes the to section is sending to a group of other people. So there's a one email address that is written there, and it actually is not sent directly to you as maybe Zainab Ruhwanya at something.com. And then if you check on the from, you'd see that the email address is not even related to the company that you're dealing with. Another kind of social engineering is called vishing. Vishing is where a fraudster phones you, and they pose as a bank official, service provider, or sometimes they pose as you and uses social engineering skills to manipulate them into disclosing confidential information, and then they use your information to defraud you as a person that they have done so. And I would really like for you to watch how easy this individual was hacked. Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine, Zainab. I think we can distribute the links to those videos afterwards,
Yeah.
just to save time here. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted them to see quickly how somebody pretended to be someone's wife and called.
We cannot hear the sound of the video.
Oh, okay. Okay, so what the two were doing, a guy asked to see how the phishing attack worked, and a lady say, I can do it. So what she did, she opened a computer, and then there was a child crying, and she pretended she's like the sense of urgency, and there's a child crying, there's a lot of mess in their house, and then she called the company, and then they were able to give her information about the man that she pretends is her husband, and then she got the password and she was able to log in and to lock the person out of the system. So this is a kind of a phishing attack. And then there's SMS phishing. So the criminal prawns target through the text messages, and some now for us will be coming like text messages and WhatsApp message. And then they'll ask you to phone a number they claim is from a trusted institution to verify your confidential information, or click a link. Then they might mislead you into revealing your confidential information. And this is very common in South Africa because SABRIC reports, like in 2019, over 12,000 mobile banking fraud incidents were through these SIMs phishing and SMS phishing, which was done through a SIM swap. So this is another question that you ask, what is it actually a SIM swap? So as you understand, in a lot of applications that we do or we register to, we usually do something called two-factor authentication. So you register into Facebook and then you put your email address. And so once you forget your email address on Facebook, they use your phone to send you the code that you can prove that you are who you say you are. So you know your password, and then you also have a device that or your phone that they can send you something and prove yourself. So this is where the criminals are using SIM swapping, and it becomes very important in a current age. So someone would call your phone company and pretend now, like that lady or how she's done, they pretend to be somebody related to you or to be you, and say that you've either lost your phone and then you'd like to swap your SIM. And sometimes they don't even need to call your phone company. They might be working with people working in your phone company themselves. So they say they know you and they know you're using, this is something you're using for your financial activities, and then they can maneuver whatever they're able to do, and then change your number from your phone number, and then they give it to somebody else, and that somebody is able to get your maybe if it's a OTP that is sent to them instead of getting to you. So how to know you are a victim of SIM swap? If you have a phone, you have to make sure that you're able to place a call. So if you are at home and your network is always perfect, and for a certain period of time you see that you're unable to place a call or text, there's no signal. So you really have to find a way to call somebody to make sure that is it like, do we have any problem with our network? And then maybe you have another device, or you have an email that comes in, say that notifies that there's an amount of money that has been sent from your account somewhere else, or there's someone who has logged in your device. So that's one way for you to determine, or you are unable to access any of your accounts. So you know that you've been logged out. Somebody was able to get your details, your username, your password, and also to have your phone that they received an OTP. And then there's something called pretexting. This is another kind of attack that I will just come up with a story in order to fool you to disclose some confidential information. And I'd love for you to watch how easy the group of people from Jim Kimmel Show, they were able to reveal their passwords so easily by somebody just having a pretext and telling them a story, telling them something about, asking them questions regarding their password. What's your password? Is it your pet? And then they would, is it your pet? They say, yeah, it's related to my pet and something. And then they would reveal information about what's your pet's name. They would give the name of your pet and they set a number. And what's those number? It was when were you born? And then they get all those details and they're able to put them together to make out a password. So please, when you have time, sit down and watch. And with that, I would like to talk quickly on password security and how important it is. When you get time, watch this video. And so for passwords, I want to advise you that I know we all love our children, we love our grandchildren and things that we own, our dogs, etc. Please make sure that you do not use your password of things that someone is able to determine from your social media. And password should contain at least 15 characters in minimum. Some say 8, so you can start there, but you need to have at least one special character, at least one uppercase letter, one lowercase letter, and at least one number. And you can use, for password, you can have a phrase that's your favorite, and you could use maybe the last digits of your phrase, or the first digit, the middle digit, something like that, and mix it with the numbers that you think you can understand. So do not use personal information. You have to secure your password reminders. Do not write your password on a piece of paper and leave it there. If you watch the video of Ellen, you'd see how easy someone could steal someone's password. You have if you have a notebook that you put on your password that is completely wrong, do not do that. You have to change your password regularly and then never reuse your password. So if you have a password that you're using it on Facebook, please do not use it in your bank. For your bank, because if somebody is able to break into Facebook, they might be able to break into your bank. You shouldn't share your password with anyone, even if you trust them, and you have to secure your password. And you have to use 2-factor authentication. That is very, very important. Although it's easy for someone, it can be easy for someone to get in your device through a SIM sock, but it's better to have 2-factor authentication. And there are different ways you can have 2-factor authentication. There are apps, for example, in Google Play Store that you can download that does 2-factor authentication. And then there's something I really want to talk this so quickly. Quid pro quo is something that has happened.
Zainab, sorry to interrupt, but you'll have to wrap it up. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, so someone might call you quickly and say they have some sort of information that they want to share with you, and you have to share something with them. And this is an example that has happened in Experian. They shared over 25,000 of business information to the attacker, and the attacker also shared something with them. So there was some kind of quid pro quo between the two. So I give you something, you give me something. So how can you protect yourself? You have to be mindful of what information you share about yourself on the social media, as we said. Treat all incoming communication with care. And remember that no trustworthy institution will be contacting you through SMS or over phone number asking you for a password and username. You shouldn't confirm or upgrade or reactivate your accounts from an email that's sent to you. And you have to delete any request for personal information or password. If you are unsure, you should call your financial institution to make sure that this is a legitimate information that came to you. So never give any information about your username or password over the phone, over SMS, or through email. Yeah, so again, this is the repetition of what we saw there, and thank you.
Thank you, Zainab. I didn't know there's so much about cybersecurity as what you packed in here. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's much more than what one is aware of. I've got 2 questions here on the chat panel. The one, you've mentioned that many apps on the Google Play Store are probably Trojan software. So how can you trust something when you download something from Google Play Store? Is there any method that you can check on?
Okay, so first of all, look at the publisher of that application and try to Google them and see who are they and what other people are talking about them. That's very important. And avoid installing any type of application. Like not everything should be trustworthy. Like, so you can ask somebody, you can follow up, because for example, Google Play Store, it's quite different with how iStore does their checking. There are so many applications because it's an open source. Anyone can put their application in there. It's a challenge to actually tell who actually is the Trojan horse and who is not. But I think my advice would be use application that you need. Do not just install anything. So there are some games. Look at the game companies that are trustworthy. Not everybody who produces a game is trustworthy.
Okay, and then also someone is asking or saying, am I right in saying that phone banking is much more riskier than banking on a laptop?
Yeah, it might be if somebody's listening in the middle. And phone banking, you have to know that you are trusting the person that is on the other end, who you're talking to. And for example, the banker or the person you're talking to, first of all, they shouldn't ask your password or your username. They can ask, there's other things that they would ask you, but they shouldn't ask information that is only you're supposed to be knowing. So you really have to be careful of who you're talking to and who is on the other line. And if you are unsure of that, you have to ask your bank to call you. If somebody calls you, you call your bank and say, can you please call me and prove that this person who called me is the one who says they are who they are.
Thank you, Zainab. I think we must wrap it up there. I will make this recording available, as I mentioned in the beginning, and I will ask Zainab to send me the links of the videos that she wanted to show us, which I'll also distribute to all of you. So thank you very much. And that's to all the presenters. Remember, they don't get remunerated for the presentation or the preparation, so they do it in good faith to us. So thank you very much, Derick and Martin and Zainab. Okay. Today's little tutorial about I didn't know I can do that will hopefully reveal a few tips and unknown facts about a very handy tool that is included in Windows 10. Now, apologies to the Apple users, but I trust there is something similar available for you. The tool is called Snip and Sketch. And Snip and Sketch can capture images from your computer screen. You can add annotations to it and post the result in any other document or applications. I produced a short tutorial which is now available on my YouTube channel, and in that tutorial you will learn how to use Snip and Sketch and also a few useful settings. It's included in the tutorial, in the survey that follows. You can open that link, click on that link now in the chat panel, and then open the survey. And you can complete that while I'm talking or just closing the meeting. Our next meeting is on Wednesday, 28 October at 10 o'clock. And as you've seen again, we ran out of time. So from October onwards, we will only cover 2 topics at a meeting. The first one in October will be about cloud computing and cloud storage, and specifically what benefits are there for you as an individual. And the second topic will be about cookies or digital tracks and privacy. Now, the presenters, Derick has got a lot of practical experience about cloud computing, so I've asked him again to cover the first topic. The second topic about digital tracks and privacy will be presented by Pieter Geldenhuys, someone I'm sure you will find very interesting. All I want to say now is that Pieter is the founder and director of the Institute for Technology, Strategy and Innovation but I will send more information in a future newsletter. So that is the end of the meeting. Thanks again, Martin, for allowing us to use your Zoom room, and hopefully from October we will have our own Zoom license, and I'm sure we'll see Martin again in future. I will think of another nice topic that you can prepare. Thank you very much, and the same to Derick.
Pinotage, Johan. If I prefer to talk about pinotage, and then you can do a live tasting as well.
Yeah, if I could have presented you now with a bottle of pinotage, I would have done so. Thank you very much, and thanks to Derick. And you are welcome to unmute yourself and talk to one another while I'll leave the meeting open for a while, just for everyone to get access to that survey. Penny, yes, you're welcome.
Are you going to show the tutorial on Snip and Sketch now, or are you going to send it as a link?
The link is inside the survey, so if you go into the survey, you'll see the link to the tutorial at the bottom.